Hello viewers, welcome to Coding Interviews channel. Hope you are doing great. Today's problem from Leetcode is find the substring with maximum cost. So you are given with a string s, a string chars of distinct characters, and an integer array vals of same length of chars. So the cost of substring is the sum of the values of each character in a substring. The cost of an empty string is considered as 0. The value of the character is defined in the following way. So if the character is not in the chars, then the value of its corresponding position is 1 index in the alphabet. So basically there are like 26 alphabets in English, like lowercase in here, right? So the problem is with all the lowercase characters only, right? So A will be termed as 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on until Z is 26, right? So this is the regular value of each character, right? But the chars, there are distinct characters, and vals will be the value of each character. So that is what is the second description, right? So when a character comes in chars, so the corresponding value will be given. So now with all this, right, we'll have to override the value of that particular character, right? So I'm going to walk you through example and then we'll go from there, right? And then the ask here is return the maximum cost among all the substrings of S, right? So let's take a example and go from there, right? So here I'm just taking the same example as example 1 here, where given input S is ADA and chars D is D and vals is minus 1000, right? So as by following this, right, I have prepared a map, basically chars correct cost map, right? A value is 1, B's value is 2, C's value is 3, D's value is 4, E's value is 5, and so on, Z until 26, right? But now this chars is not empty, right? So there is one character and the value is minus 1000. So essentially what we need to do is D value we need to update it to minus 1000, right? So this is our character map. So if there is E, something like, for example, right, E, let's say minus 1. So then we will have to update this to minus 1, right? So just as simple as that. So since we'll just go with this problem, right? I'm going to take that off and we'll stick with the problem like that. So character map, initially they're all A to Z and their values are 1 to 26. But now after going through the chars and vals, I have updated this char cost map to their updated values. So this is our final map, right? Now, what are all the substrings that are possible for this string? A, AD, ADA, ADAA, D, DA, DAM. So basically, there's, for a given string, there can be multiple different substrings that are possible, right? So now, since our ask is this, right, return the maximum cost among all substrings of S. So let's say these are the substrings of this one, right? So now you will have to calculate the cost of every substrings in here and then give what is the maximum cost. So do we want to do that? So that will be a completely a brute force approach. But is there any way better than the brute force, right? So we don't want to calculate what are the substrings for a given string, but still give the answer. So that is what we are going to look in this particular video. So I'm going to take a couple of variables here. We are going to have a max cost which is assigned to 0 and current cost which is assigned to 0 as well. And obviously the S is ADA, right? And we will start with the first index. Basically, since this I'm going to show you the code in Python. So in Python, the strings are 0 indexed. That's why I have initialized index with 0. So probably, so this will be A, right? So the character A in this string is at 0 indexed, right? So this is what our setup is. So max cost, current cost, and S is this one, right? And we have already updated our chars cost map with the value of d, because this is only one value that is given the override for that particular character. But everything else remains same. A value is 1, B value is 2, C value is 3, and so on until Z. But keep in mind, we don't have all the letters other than A and D here, right? So we won't use anything else, right? We just use A and D, that's it. We don't use B, C, E, and so on, right? We just use only A and D, right? So now at the index 0, the the character is A. What we should do is, okay, what is the cost for this A in our char cost map? That is 1. What we will do is, we will add that to the current cost, right? So current cost was initialized to 0. So 0 plus 1, it will become 1, right? Then max cost, we will be looking into get the maximum of current cost or max cost, right? So what was the max cost? 0. What is the current cost? It became 1. So max cost is maximum of current cost and max cost. That became 1. So now max cost and current cost are 1 after the index 0 processing. Now, so this is where it gets interesting, right? So first index is always simpler. So now when we go to the index is equal to 1, that means we are supposed to get the value of d. So what is the value of d? It's minus 1000, right? So as we were always adding the current cost with the current character's value, right? So this is what current character of, basically we are going to say d, right? So what is that? 1 plus negative 1000. So that will be negative 999, right? So as per our formula, max cost is again max of current cost and max cost. Current cost is negative 99 and max cost is previously assigned as 1. So that will be still 1. But current cost is negative 999, right? So what we should do in this case, right? So initially we have initialized it to 0, but now the current cost became even more negative. So should we keep at the negative value or we should update the current cost? So this is where we need to think more, right? So in order to proceed, right? So that means when you go with two characters, A and D as a substring. So when the substring was just A, you have the cost 1. But when the substring becomes AD, it became negative 999. Obviously, our goal is return the maximum cost substring, right? Return the maximum cost substring. So we don't want to return AD. So A is better than AD in our case, right? So this is A so far. So in here, the max cost is this. So after processing D, that means essentially AD is what? Our substring, right? Do we want to go with AD? Right? Do we want to go with AD? What happens if we want to go with AD? Because it will become current cost as minus 999, negative 999. So we can't be going. That's why we have updated max cost to 1. And we should also do one more thing. What we'll do is we will reinitialize current cost to 0, right? So that means so far whatever the substring that we have, we are saying okay, max is only 1, right? So we are going to have a fresh start. That means a fresh new substring starting from index 2, right? So that way we will be doing at current cost is 0 and plus what we are doing, current cost of essentially A, right? So what is index 2? Basically A, right? Index 2 is A here. So obviously this will become 0 plus 1. That will become 1. So again, you'll go back and say this one, right? Simple. So max of current cost, what is current cost? 1. And what is max cost? 1. So max cost is still 1, right? So even since we are restarting this, right? So whatever the index that we had or the maximum substring we had, we are restarting here. So restart the substring from here. So like this we are going to continue. So the only thing that we need to remember here is whenever the cost goes so negative, right? So negative, we are going to reinitialize the current cost to 0. So that way we are going to proceed with the problem, right? So now let's go ahead and look at the code. The code will be much simpler. It will be very fast. So just keep in mind whatever the logic that we have been looking at it, and then I'm going to show the code. So as I mentioned, current cost and max cost, we are initializing 0 and cost of the character map. So initially for all A to Z, so A is initialized to 1, B is to 2, and so on, and Z is to 26. So this is, you don't have to initialize this. You can actually make sense out of it with other different mechanisms, but just to give the clarity, right? I have made up this array so that it will be clear for us to understand. So once you code this, and you can possibly improve without having to actually hard code this thing, right? So now we have this cost array, and as I mentioned, the chars, right? Chars will be given and the corresponding values, right? So the corresponding values I am updating. Just like in the previous example case where the value of D will be updated to negative 1000, right? D is initialized minus 4, right? So now after this step, these two, after this for loop, this will be basically going to minus 1000, right? And this is where our algorithms will come into place, right? So for each character in S, right, we are updating the current cost, right? And we are calculating the max cost between max cost and current cost. If at all current cost becomes negative, we are reinitializing current cost. At the end, just return the max cost. So that is our code, simple and sweet, right? So look at the time and space complexity, right? Time and space complexity. So let's say the length of the string is n, right? So time complexity is we are going through the entire string, right? We are going through the entire string only once, right? That will be order of n. So there is some more cost that we will also incur, right? So here, in this case, it said the chars will have distinct characters. So in the English alphabet, obviously there are only 26 characters, and out of that, there will be subset of characters that will be given here, or maybe all 26 also could be given, but that will be at the max, it will be 26 characters, right? So we could say, okay, it will be a constant time for that, right? So that means totally it will be order of n is the time complexity and space. So how much extra space that we are using here? So we are using this current cost variable and max cost variable and this cost map, right? So for lowercase English alphabet, this cost map will be constant, right? There are only 26 spaces, and max cost is a variable and current cost variable is a variable. So what we can say is the space complexity is also a constant space complexity for this particular problem, right? There comes to our solution for this particular problem. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe. There are several playlists that I have created for all the different kind of problems such as BFS, DFS, dynamic programming, and so on. Please check them out as well. I have uploaded the code for this problem to the GitHub repository, and the link for the GitHub repository and the code is in the description section. Please subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the description box, comments box down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll meet you in the next video.